The thermal scanner for Block 9 flickered with a persistent, rhythmic error. 3 massive biological signatures pulsed with the heat of apex predators, but the console insisted on a 4th occupant. I watched the readouts, rubbing my temples as the digital display refused to acknowledge the empty space on the floor. The records say humans are fragile. After seeing what SCI-FI did in Block 9, I promise you'll never look at a human the same way again. For hours earlier, the graphite tip of SCI-FI's pencil had been perfectly sharp. She sat in the intake lounge, tapping the dull wood against her chin while her eyes traced the structural reinforcements of the ceiling. It was a mundane clerical error, a simple slip of a data chip that reclassified a 5-foot for human female as a Class S biological threat. I was polishing my ceremonial data chip when the realization of my mistake hit me like a physical blow to my primary neural hub. I had sent a soft, unarmored creature into a cage designed for the galaxy's most violent nightmares. Through the reinforced viewing port of the high-security block, the scene appeared like a funeral. The air in the monster division smelled of old copper and the thick, musk-heavy scent of the brute. Standing at the center of the pit, SCI-FI looked like a speck of dust amidst boulders. 3 inmates surrounded her, their very biology as a testament to the lethality of the sector. A brute, its knuckles scraping the floor, let out a low, vibrating growl that rattled the observation glass. Beside it, a venom spitter coiled its translucent body, a hiss of pressurized toxins escaping its throat like the screech of metal on metal. I was hoping for a challenge, SCI-FI said, her voice carrying a slow, melodic casualness that baffled my Thalassian sensors. She bared her throat and teeth in a wide, white line gesture. To my this was the ultimate submissive fear grimace, a pathetic plea for a quick death. I watched her through the sensor grid, my guilt manifesting as a frantic itch beneath my flight suit. She was unarmed, save for the dull pencil tucked behind her ear, yet her posture remained oddly fluid. She wasn't rigid with terror. Across the cold floor, the brute lunged. I turned my primary ocular away, unable to watch the inevitable crunch of bone. But the sound that followed wasn't the wet thud of impact. Instead, a sharp rhythmic tapping echoed through the cell. SCI-FI had stepped aside with a motion so precise it looked accidental, her hand moving to catch a small piece of lint on her shoulder. The brute's massive fist struck the reinforced bulkhead with a sound like a thunderclap, leaving a spitterbear of cracks in the composite plating. "Too much shoulder, big guy," SCI-FI remarked, her tone dry and instructive. "You're telegraphing." The venom spitter lunged next, its tail whipping through the air. SCI-FI didn't retreat. She moved into the strike, her fingers brushing the dull pencil behind her ear as she calculated the kinetic arc of the creature's massive, fluid-filled weight. Beneath her skin, dense kinetic muscle fibers invisible to the naked eye but surging with Terran gravity adaptation, prepared for the transfer of energy. Across the observation deck, my hand hovered over the emergency vent release. My logic dictated that a quick vacuum flush was more merciful than what the Void Stalker would do to her. Then, I saw the human's shoulders drop. The tension I had mistaken for paralysis vanished. Behind her, the brute recovered, its massive lungs pumping like bellows. Beside it, the venom spitter prepared a second high-pressure burst. They were the most feared biological assets in the sector. Yet the human was looking at the ceiling again. I watched her lips move, counting. 3, 2, 1, she whispered. SCI-FI adjusted the collar of her jumpsuit. She reached out and plucked a small, white piece of lint from her sleeve, flicking it toward the floor with a bored, rhythmic motion. The Void Stalker struck from the shadows of the rafters. It was a blur of obsidian limbs and serrated edges, a creature that moved faster than Thalassian optics could track. Odd, SCI-FI didn't flinch. She pivoted on a single heel, her center of gravity shifting with a fluid efficiency that defied the cell's artificial weight. As the predator's mass hurtled past, she didn't strike with a fist. She used the creature's own momentum, a light touch to its trailing limb that sent the 300-pound killer spiraling into the van spitter. The collision was a chaotic tangle of snapping jaws and spraying toxins. "Leverage," SCI-FI said, her voice a calm anchor in the center of the screeching violence. high mass just means a longer fall. In that moment, my internal processor stalled. The bared teeth, the wide eyes, the steady hum in her chest. It wasn't a fear grimace. My clinical analysis had been fundamentally inverted. NEA wasn't the prey bearing her throat to the dark. She was the predator, smiling because she had finally found a variable she couldn't solve in her head. The brute roared, a sound of primitive fury that shook the station's foundations. It charged with a speed that should have ended the encounter. NEA didn't move until the beast was inches away. With a motion so fast it appeared as a glitch in the sensor feed, she reached for the dull pencil behind her ear. NEA sharpened the dull pencil with her thumb while 3 apex predators backed away. The brute skidded to a halt, its obsidian eyes wide with a new, biological imperative survival. It looked at the tiny wooden stick in her hand, then at its own shredded comrade. The creature, which had broken the spines of a dozen guards, took a deliberate step backward. Beneath the observation glass, I saw a half-eaten sugar stick on the floor. It belonged to Kalo, the young janitor who had shared his snack with the fragile girl during intake. The contrast was a physical weight in my chest. The human wasn't a mistake sent to be slaughtered, she was a mistake the station had tried to cage. By the time the high guard arrived, the cell was silent. NEA was sitting on the brute's slumped, unconscious shoulder, calmly checking the lead of her pencil. The 3 most dangerous inmates in the sector were huddled in the far corner, their eyes fixed on the door, pleading for the safety of solitary confinement. I stood in the aftermath, the clinical detachment of my role replaced by a cold, reverent awe. I thought about the files I had skimmed, the data on Terran kinetic muscle fibers, and the terrifying density of their bone structures. We had measured her value in heightened weight, failing to see the fire burning behind the bone. The reinforced wall near the door bore a single jag mark. Deep in the composite plating, the dull pencil remained lodged, its wood splintered but its position immovable. The brute's heavy knuckles were visible in the shadow of the corridor. Trembling, the monster division had a new occupant, and for the first time in Thalassian history, the inmates were the ones crying for the locks to be checked. A single graphite smudge remained on the human's thumb.